Welcome everybody to a special Halloween Bangers and Classics podcast with me, James Rupper, and him, David Malloy. And we were touching down somewhere or something. I don't know.
Yes, well, we're just in California, James.
Oh, right.
Can't you spot the sunshine?
No.
Oh, we'll take those dark glasses off again, for goodness sake, man. Anyway, James, we could use our time machine and go back to the 30th of September 1995. Sorry, 1955.
Oh, yeah.
To try and avert a fatal accident occurring, but we're not allowed to do that because that's tampering with timelines, etc. Absolutely forbidden. So, what we're doing is we're here in 2022 at the junction of California State Routes 41 and 46. And we know who was killed in that fatal accident, don't we, in 1955?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who was it?
Jane Mansfield.
Oh, dear goodness. Well, you get the first initial right.
Yeah, I'm 10 years out, probably.
Yes, but it's James Dean, of course.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, James Dean was driving his Porsche 550 Speedster on his way to a race meeting, and unfortunately he was in a crash that proved fatal. Now, there are a lot of stories we could tell about the car. There's a curse that relates to some parts of it, allegedly, if you want to believe that, and the whereabouts of most of the car remains seem to be a bit of a mystery. They haven't been resolved. We're going to jump into the time machine now.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yep, and we're going to head to Los Angeles on the 23rd of September 1955, a week before James Dean's fatal accident. We'll have to wear disguises. We can wear your fake beard anyway, so we're fine. Yeah? And we are going to spy on a conversation between Alec Guinness and James Dean. Right, are we listening, James? Here we go. Blimey, did you hear that?
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. Alec Guinness just said to James Dean, please never get in that car. If you get in it, you'll be found dead in it by this time next week. I'm just looking at my watch here, and it says 23rd September, 55. Blimey, James. James Dean was killed 1 week later. And those are, these are Alec Guinness's own words. Wow.
Amazing.
Blimey. Now, that is spooky. I think we should better get back to the present day because it's just a bit too spooky here for my liking. So where shall we go to next, young sir? Let's have a look. I think we need to go back to our own country. We need to go back to Britain.
Okay.
In the 21st century. And I think we should head off to Sunderland and let's visit the Empire Theatre. But let's not use the time machine.
No.
I mean, James, in days of yore, before we get into the story, you used to write books that famous people write forewords.
Well, I used to write books that people bought years ago, but that doesn't happen anymore. But they never mind.
But is it true that Les Dawson wrote a foreword for a book?
He did. He was very, very gracious and very, very nice, agreeing to do that. And strangely enough, actually, after he did die, there was a program about him, and there was the camera swung around his office, and on his desk was that very book, What I Wrote, with him. So he obviously was either liked it or he thought a lot of it, but it was a very funny foreword. It's always worth reading. But he was a immensely nice person.
Right, crikey. What book was it, James?
It's called the Jaguar Driver's Book, which is long out of date, out of print rather, as well as being out of date.
Well, people could still pick up in the second-hand market.
They might find it in a charity shop. You never know.
Do you not have any copies left you could flog?
No, I don't have any at all. The rights belong to Haynes Publishing, and I don't think they'll publish those again.
Ah, that's a pity. Yeah, so did he have a Jaguar, Les Dawson?
He did, yeah, that's right. He liked Jaguars. I think he was restoring a V12E type at the time that he wrote the foreword. But he knew a chap who ran there was a Jaguar museum in Essex, and that's how I got in touch with him. He knew the chap who ran that, and we got together via that. But he was a very big fan of Jaguars.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'm intrigued though. Why didn't you go to John Prescott for the foreword?
Well, John Prescott and I did clash several years later, strangely enough, when he phoned up as Deputy Prime Minister to tell me off for writing about his own cars. So, I suppose I could have had him there, but and obviously he's a very big Jaguar fan, but not really my kind of person.
Yeah, well, you and I both had scrapes there. My name ended up on the
Yeah,
Home Secretary's desk once in 1997.
goodness me.
And it wasn't me. I did not carve it into his desk, I assure
Mm,
you. Circumstances are long-winded, so I won't relate to them.
yeah,
All to do with work, and I was
yeah.
absolutely right. So I don't care. Yabu
Mm,
sucks to Yabu sucks to him, and the person that dropped me in, alleged or tried to drop me in the mire.
yeah.
Um, but there we go. Anyway, the relevance of Les Dawson to this
Mm,
is the Sunderland Empire Theatre, fine, grand old theatre that it
yeah.
is that Sid James, the beloved Carry On actor, died
Mm,
here in 1976.
yeah.
And Les Dawson came here, and I believe the date was in the 1980s. I don't have the exact date, but he apparently saw the ghost of Sid James in his dressing room
Goodness me.
and stayed well clear of the theatre for at least some time afterwards.
Yeah.
So there you go, Les Dawson.
Mm,
And a very nice man, as you say,
yeah.
and a man I would believe. I don't know if that story comes from him or if it comes via friends he might have told. But if he did, in fact, say he saw something, I'd be inclined to believe it. And that's that. Anyway, I think we should take a break and have
Mm.
a quick coffee just now, James.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but what we should perhaps do is tell the listeners a true life ghost story.
Right.
And I have got a cracking one for them,
Goodness
and
me.
I'm sure you've got one as well.
I'm sure I can think of one in the few minutes we have to have a coffee.
Right, well, we'll do this, then we'll take a break, and you come back with yours. So this goes back some years, and I can't mention the name of the chap or how I knew this person because I don't want to identify him. But somebody I knew, a very well read, very intelligent individual, a very credible individual. And we were talking one day, and I told him a ghost story about something that happened in my grandmother's house, the poltergeist, which is absolute fact. It's not open to any form of debate whatsoever. But in response, this chap said, well, I don't really believe this kind of thing. But this happened. And he was like me, was from north of the border. He was in London. He'd arranged to meet some friends, and they said, let's meet at a pub. He didn't really know the pub very well. He didn't know it at all, actually. Didn't really know the area of London it was in very well. So he gave himself plenty of time to make sure he got there. And this has gone back some years now. So mobile phones and things like sat-navs, etc., probably not very prevalent, if they existed at all. Anyway, so he arrives at the pub early, and he's sitting having a quiet drink waiting for his friends to arrive, when he sees an older woman staring at him, and he's a bit put out by this. Why is she staring at me? And his anxiety only heightened when she came over to him. And she sat down and said, I'm a psychic. Now, he thought, oh God, we've got a live one here. And no doubt he was thinking, I'll just finish my drink and make an excuse to get the heck out of here. But what she said next chilled him to the bone. She said, do you know, you have a little white dog sitting at your feet, and I can tell you its name. Now, I'm not going to tell you the exact name she gave because I might identify him. She was one letter out, and I'll explain why in a minute. She said the dog's name is Jack. Well, here's the thing. His mother had died some years before, and she had a dog, and he cared for the dog for the rest of its days. A little white poodle, whose name was Jock. Now, there was absolutely no way on this earth the woman could have known that. And as I say, it's actually more spooky if you know the dog's real name. She was out by a single letter, and she anglicised a Scottish word to an English word. That's all. That was the only difference. There was no way in this world that she could have known that he looked after a little white dog or got his name to all intents and purposes correct. And that is a story told to me by the person involved and someone whose credibility, as far as I am concerned, is in no way, shape or form in doubt. So there we go. So James and I are going to go and finish our coffee, and we'll be back in a moment or two.
Greetings. Easy Count here. You are listening to the Halloween podcast from those idiots at Bangers and Classics.
Right, we've now finished our coffee, and before we go on, I'd like to say that the story about Alec Guinness comes from his own autobiography. We don't have a copy of it in the Bangers and Classics library, And I'm afraid that James has spent the rest of this week's budget
Mm.
whining and dining Hammer Horror actresses, so
Yeah.
I'll be able to check it out. But that's where it apparently comes from. It's Alec Guinness's own account. Be that as it may, we've had a nice cup of coffee, and now James has a story for us. So, the floor is yours, Mr. Ruppert. Let's scare us silly.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I think you can find Alec Guinness telling that on a Parkinson from the mid-70s, I think.
Right,
Because
wow.
I've heard it relatively recently, so it's all true. Nothing is made up, apart from what I'm going to tell you now. But it was a very good story when I was very young. I got an annual for Christmas, as we all did, and it would have been like a tiger annual. I don't think it was eagle. But it was like a sporty sort of annual, and I think it would have been more tiger than anything else. If anybody
Hotspur?
remembers that, could have been Hotspur. That's very true. But yeah, it was one of those sort of boys' own type stuff. But there was a very good story in there. Where there was like a barn find Formula One car. So there was this car for the 1950s that was a barn find thing, and they sort of rolled it out, and there was this journalist who'd found it, and he went back at night to sort of check things out. And the thing about it was that it wasn't there, and so it was actually going around the track. It was Silverstone or Brands Hatch or something. And but the thing about the car was obviously it hadn't been used for 10, 15 years. It was a proper barn find, and he tried to find it, and it was going around the track. Obviously, no lights because it was dark. And eventually, when he returned to where the car had been, and it was on a trailer in a barn. It was ticking and cooling down and everything, but it was in the state it had been in. It was covered in dust. It was flat tires and all sorts of things, and it was put down as a sort of an unexplained. But people apparently used to hear this car tear around the track most nights. So it was,
Wow.
there you go. So it was an old-fashioned Formula One car, front engine, and all that sort of stuff. And
Blimey.
so ghostly apparitions. And as a young person, that terrified me. I thought, goodness me, that's awful things that happen. But actually, what a wonderful thing to see if you could see
Yeah.
a car going around the track in the middle of the night, driven by a ghostly spectre.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where the makers of one of the Ford commercials from the noughties got
Yeah,
the
could be.
idea. I think it was a Ford Mustang. We never saw it here, but it was very much Steve McQueen themed, and it's based in Field of Dreams. The voice in the cornfield, if you build it, he will come. So the guy basically builds a race circuit in his cornfield.
Yeah.
And the Ford Mustang, he drives onto it. And out of the corn comes Steve McQueen. Takes the keys, goes off and drives the car around the track. It was actually well done. It was very well put together. It was very much in the same spirit, though perhaps not as good as the Ford Puma Bullet advert. I didn't like it at the time, the Ford Puma Bullet advert, because Steve McQueen wouldn't drive a Puma.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I was very much wrong about that, and I think Steve McQueen would no doubt have loved driving the Puma. Great handy little car it was. So I got that one wrong, but it was a very well put together ad. And this one, the American Ford Mustang ad, was equally well put together. I just wonder if perhaps there was something of that story made its way, or maybe similar stories elsewhere. Who knows? Well, before we get back into our travels, I think we should do the challenge, because we have done a challenge this week.
All right.
If James remembers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Task is to find and buy a car that features in a classic horror film. Has to have some screen time in the film, but needn't be integral to the plot, and it doesn't have to be the actual film car, because we'd never find those. We'd really struggle. Just has to be the same sort of make and model. And I think I've got a good one that you'll approve of, James.
Oh, okay.
I would love to hear what you've got, because it's going to be good. I know it.
Is it? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, right. I've got to say that. Contractually, it says it in the sheet in front of me.
Oh, right.
So I've got to read that. So what is it? What have you got for us?
Well, obviously, there's a film made in 1971. I think we might have spoken about recently. I'm not quite sure of its title. And what we saw in that in a few of the London scenes was a Marcus. And I thought I'd like to try and find a Marcus. And strangely enough, I found one from 1971, the same year as the film. So there you go. And also, it looks like the same color. It's sort of white or off-white. And they're not as expensive as you would think. I mean, when you think about the price of E-types and stuff, I know it's plastic and stuff, and it's got I think it's got a Volvo engine, haven't they, or Ford engine? I can't remember. Straight six. I was quite interested to find that it's a K-plated one, and it's 22,995. It seems to be in very good condition. Well used, 95,000 miles. 3 owners apparently. And yeah, the description says it's got a Volvo 3-litre engine, sitting on 13-inch Cosmic alloys, which are tiny, tiny things.
Volvo 3-litre.
Yeah, apparently. That's what that Marcus. Well, I think they did have different engines, didn't they, from time to time? I know they had Ford, they had V6s
the Essex,
and stuff.
the Essex engine.
But this one apparently has a straight six Volvo. So
I don't recall Volvo doing a straight six.
Well, I don't know, or whatever.
Maybe they
3-litre.
Yeah,
don't know. But there you go.
Yeah.
So from the Dracula AD 72 street scene, I've got myself a Marcus GT Coupe, which seems to be in incredibly good condition and very usable.
You just want to outflash Johnny Aguilar so you can basically impress the actresses in the film.
Well, that could happen. It may not break down as much as the Stag. I was just going to go and buy a Stag just to annoy you, but I thought this was more interesting.
Well, I actually thought of buying a Stag as well.
Did you really?
Yeah. But I decided to go to the opposite end of the decade for my film. And my film is filmed by the great John Carpenter.
Oh, right.
It's a film called, you know it, The Fog. And in the film, the owner of KAB Antonio Bay radio station, the lady who owns it, is seen driving a VW thing, as they called it in America.
Yeah,
we call it Type 181, an orangey one. And based loosely, I suppose, or to some degree, on the World War II German Kubelwagen.
Yeah.
Certainly in shape. I've seen one kicking around up here with all sorts of accoutrements. I might even find a picture of it and put it on the Twitter page, because it was quite an unusual car. It did actually fit the Halloween style.
Yeah.
I'll have to find that. Now I've thought about it, I'll do that. But anyway, the one I found looks to be a remarkable thing. Well, see what I did there? It's £20,000 it's on for. It's from 1974. It's from SMC. It's a company in Chester. It's orange coloured. It's an M registration, obviously, from 74. It's got a slightly bigger engine. I think it's got a 16. I'll tell you what it's got. It's got it's got an engine. It's got an engine, James. It's a very tidy looking engine. And it is 1641cc with Weber carburetors.
Oh, right.
It's a new clutch, new exhaust, new braking systems. It's a model that was built in Mexico. This one apparently spent time in Southern California and came over here. It's metal stripped, the bodywork stripped to bare metal. Even though warm weather, it still has some tin worm. And obviously the metalwork was repaired where required. New sills, window frame was restored. The front wings are higher and wider than the original, and it was painted. And it's a sort of orangey colour, but it says in the ad it was a 3-tone yellow to red-orange fade. So perhaps, I don't know if that's been done. To me, it looks orange in the pictures. It's a new interior. Seats were remoulded, trimmed in black and orange, black carpets with orange contrast, and the door cards, visors, and even the wheel have been trimmed to match that scheme. Body colour dash, new gear shifter, roll bar, seat belts, and various other things. It's got a custom speaker box, and it says the weather gear and the black hood are in fantastic condition, and had a recent rear screen as well. Engine was obviously uprated, and it's very, very nicely detailed. If you look at the photographs, you'll see it looks fantastic. So I have to say, this thing just looks great. It looks absolutely terrific, James.
Yep.
So really cool looking little car. £20,000, you don't really get another one like that. It does look a bit different from standard with the wider wings and with the interior, but it's still great. And if you want to indulge your fantasies of driving up to a former lighthouse, it's now a radio station, and being pursued around by the ghosts of dead lepers, well, there you go. That's the car for you. 20,000 quid covers it. You'll find it in Car and Classic. Two good films, though, James, I reckon. The Fog and Dracula AD 72.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd make a great binge-watching session.
Yeah.
Let's get the popcorn in later on then.
Fantastic.
This is the Herr Doctor here, yeah? It is Halloween, yeah? And it is time for the Bangers und Classics podcast. And we hope you think it is monstrously good, or else we will have to give you a visit, yeah?
Now, we've still got a couple of stories to do. Let's jump back in the car. Where are we heading to next? Yeah. We're going to Kent, James.
Oh, are we?
You can drive, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just set the sat nav for Bluebell Hill on A229, please.
Okay.
I'm sure you're familiar with the story of the Ghost Bride.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Obviously, yeah. The story goes that there was a young lady tragically killed in Eva wedding in 1965, and a ghost that may be her has been seen there on many occasions. In 1971, a young man apparently gave a girl who's said to have just more or less appeared from nowhere a lift to Chatham. And she gets out of the car in Chatham. She just literally vanishes into thin air. That's quite spooky on its own. In 1992, there were reportedly a spate of incidents. There were 3 separate reports from drivers who reported hitting somebody who ran onto the road at night. But they couldn't find, there was no evidence of a crash, no damage to the car, there was no body, there was no blood, no nothing. And apparently that's quite a common occurrence there, with someone or something running out onto the road in front of drivers. And it's attributed to this poor lass. So, what do you make of that?
Well, incredible.
Yeah. And we've got one more. So, yeah, you had time to put the petrol in the car, James.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, we couldn't afford an electric car. We're too poor. And, we're being responsible when it's not the time. No, I'm not going to go there. we're too poor to afford electric cars here. So we're having to make do with a car that we occasionally pedal just to keep things going and runs on petrol the rest of the time. So we're going to go to the A3 near Burpham in Surrey. And we could set our time machine to witness this, James. It's back 20 years. Almost exactly 20 years.
Yeah.
Because a couple of weeks before Christmas 2002, the reports received by the police, and accounts vary whether it was one person or a number of people, who saw a car lose control and go off the road near Burpham. And it obviously, they say it went into, I suppose, an area where if it went off the road there, it's not going to come back on. It's there's a slope on the other side, etc., etc. Anyway, the police attend, and lo and behold, they're looking. They don't see any evidence of a car crashing into anything. There's no car about. But they continue the search, and on closer inspection, lo and behold, they do find the car, James.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It's a maroon Vauxhall Astra. It's in a ditch. You can't really see it from the road because it's covered with trees and bushes. And nearby lay the skeletal remains of a 21-year-old man who was then on the lam. He was on the lam at the time from the police for alleged robbery. He was lying nearby. But here's the thing. The car crash hadn't happened the night before, or the week before, or the month before. It was 5 months before, James.
Oh, right.
So what did the people who reported it actually say?
Don't know.
They saw a car going off the road, as indeed it had, but did they see a recording or a replay of something that had happened some 5 months before? That's what the evidence suggests. So there you have it. That is apparently another true story.
Yeah.
As they all are this week's podcast.
Well, they are, absolutely.
Of course. Do you have any more stories for us, James?
Well, no, I've only got quite awful true stories, which was speaking to a car trader I knew a few years ago, and basically the worst part exchange you'll ever have is if somebody has passed away in a car, which you could go into quite grim detail, but it isn't very good. You've got to replace a lot of things, a surprising amount of things, to make it retailable. And presumably you don't tell the person you sell it to.
Well, yes.
And I don't think that shows up on the HPI either, but there you go.
No. Yeah, that's something you've got to watch for. What we're going to do, because it's Halloween on Monday, is I'm going to put a link to a story I've written.
All right.
On Twitter for us. If anyone wants to read that, it is car related, and it is doesn't take place on Halloween, but it's an appropriate theme, shall we say?
Yeah. So
you want to go and inspect that, listeners? That would be great. In the meantime, James and I are going to head off. Right, James, it's getting dark, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's amazing.
Oh no, that's without your dark glasses on.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Right, let's just see. Hang on. Okay, yeah, just take a left here. That's us. Right. Bloody hell, what's that?